been on my mind recently. So, like using candidate feedback has been on my mind recently because some of our ad campaigns weren't doing very well for our clients, and we really wanted to dig into why that wasn't happening. And we discovered the main reason was we were listening more to the clients and what they were saying was great about the job rather than talking about what the nurses actually wanted. And whenever we changed it about it, saw like 20-30% improvement, which is really drastic. And we started digging into this a bit more and started using more of nurses' language in our ad campaigns. And we've seen a boost across the board. So what I'm going to talk about today is really how that works and how it's worked for us and how it could work for you. And really, it's kind of like you want to think of yourself as a fly on the wall. So imagine you could be a fly on the wall and you could follow nurses on their night out after a hard week of work. You'd hear everything. You'd hear who hates who, what reason they hate them for, and why. You'd hear what they dislike about their job, what their goals are for their job, and what they want to achieve. So you'd be distracted a little bit, but you'd also be enlightened, and you would have learned a lot about the candidate market that's out there. And I know that the Monday after your weekend as a fly on the wall, you would be able to deploy that language, that verbiage that the nurses have used in a much more effective way than just saying, like, this is what the job does, this is why we're great. You would flip the conversation. So it would be focused on, this is how we solve your problem, this is how we fix it for you. So for example, we were on a call with a nurse and she said, I hate the way we're given meaningless awards, the occasional pizza, and called heroes, but the management don't stand up for us, and we feel like they're pushing the line. And that struck me as something that we needed to start using in our conversations with nurses. We needed to say, like, instead of, okay, that's bad, here's how we're better, we can sort of fill in the gaps and say, we're not the type of place that will call pizza and benefit, and it sounds like where you're working, that's what they do. And the difference here is we're listening to that nurse and then we're deploying what she said in the conversation. And there's a couple of ways that you can do this, and I want to talk about the right way and the wrong way, and the way that's worked best for us so that you can all have better conversations. So what I'm going to do is pull up my presentation. You'll be able to see a little bit more about the logic behind this and how it works, why it works, all that fun stuff. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. And yeah, if you want to join our community, just look up hiring in healthcare or nurse recruitment secrets. Patrick will put the link in the chat, and you can follow up on this. So really, we want to be flies on the wall and learn what those nurses want. And the reason for this is because people respond better to their own, what we call tribal language. So they respond to the same words, the same verbiage, the same way of talking as people who are similar to them. That's the reason why we kind of respect sports people whenever they're talking about sports on the TV, or we respect, let me think of another example. We respect like an old style politician who's done a career in the military and has worked in businesses and then gets to this point where they go into politics, but we don't respect as much someone who's a career politician. Generally, people think, oh, this person has been doing politics their whole life, they don't know what it's like for us. So as nurse recruiters, I think it's really easy to fall into that trap of appearing like someone different, or someone who is an other, someone who isn't the same as me as a nurse, someone who's trying to sell me on a job and trying to get me to do something that I might not necessarily want to do. And really, we want to find ways to move away from that, and using nurses' feedback and language is a perfect way to do it. So obviously, you can't actually be a fly in the wall. If you went into the ER, it would be a disaster and possibly dangerous. And you have to find different ways to do it. Like, how can you actually listen to nurses and log what they say and then actively use it? It's all about the execution here. So we identified 2 ways that we want to share with you. The first one, all you need is a social media profile. Go into a Facebook group and you can actually see what nurses are putting in a public forum about their struggles, their pain points, and their desires. So I'm going to show you an excellent group now that we have found that you can start using today to really immerse yourself in the world of nurses and what they are, what they care about. So this group is called Nurses with Cards. There's, I think, there's almost 270,000 nurses in here. And you can see that there's a lot of sort of conversation going on around the topic of jobs. So here, someone's talking about the pay structure. What we've done is we've went into each of these conversations and tried to pull out some of the issues and trends that nurses are facing. So, for example, I got to move to California. Like, nurses know that California pays big. If I'm speaking to a nurse and they bring up anything about California, I'm going to have more information in my head and I'm going to be able to respond to them and show them that I'm an expert in this and I'm not just a salesperson who's trying to get them to do a job that they might not want to do. I'm going to read out a really good one that we found. So it was from Tori in Maryland, and this was on the topic of nurses being burnt out. And I referenced it earlier. She said, I didn't read the article, but until we learn to stand up for ourselves, no one will help us. They give us cards for Nurse Week, the occasional pizza, silly awards, or call nurses heroes, all the while not listening at all, pushing the line further. BS, end quotation. And while Tori is just one person, what this shows us is 2 things. So first of all, whenever you're speaking to nurses and you're a magnet hospital or you give out awards that you think are cool, that showed me that not all nurses will necessarily be impressed by that. Extra, nurses like Tori are actually confrontational about it. And using this knowledge, we can go into the next conversation and be aware of that. So whenever a nurse is talking about how they feel burnt out at their current employer, we can bring in things that we've learned from viewing all these posts and these comments and say, actually, we have a prepared response here. Like, we're not just making it up off the cuff. We know that if somebody says they feel burnt out and they're getting meaningless awards, we can come in with our prepared sort of script that says, this is what we do differently, and this is why, like, you should come work with us. Hi, Krista, I see you joined. And while you can get sort of a really good general overview in this group, I'm going to put it in the Zoom. You can also use the search feature in a group to really kind of pull out the unique things that you're looking for. So, for example, if I put in recruiters, here you can see what people are saying about recruiters. So here's someone saying, recruiters, when I want to know the pay application, but they don't say it. This is showing that I think it's a bit of a joke whenever you don't put that in the job description. So recommendation number 1 is join this group and then search it for the keywords that you're sort of looking for. You can do it for your area or you can do for the type of positions. This is going to help you really just become much more educated and informed on what nurses as a whole are facing, rather than just nurses in your area who are looking for a job locally. So that's tip number 1. You can join this group and you can search and learn. Tip number 2 is, on your calls, pull up a spreadsheet like this and whilst you might be making notes in the ATS, I would also recommend that after the call, to become a better recruiter, you make notes in this style of sheet. And the purpose of this is so that it kind of forces you to ask the really important questions that, whilst they might not push this conversation forward necessarily, in the overall picture, they're going to help you become a much better recruiter and have much more informed conversations. And they are the pain points, the desires, and the motivations for seeking a job that your candidates are facing. And what the goal is for this is to build up a bank of, say, 30 rows, and you'll start realizing that nurses in your area are having common pain points. They have common desires and common reasons why they're seeking a position. And then you can start planting those in conversations before they bring them up. So, for example, if you are recruiting for a long-term care facility in Minnesota, say Minneapolis, and that's a very tight market, and consistently nurses are saying that I'm looking for a job because I feel overworked. Now you have that information cataloged and you have it on a sheet. You can do two things. So the first one is you can create sort of conversational frameworks that preempt that issue. So going into the conversation, instead of saying, why are you seeking a job? You can say, you must be flat out where you're currently working. I've heard that it's extremely busy there and they push nurses very hard. And what you're doing is just showing knowledge of the market and showing expertise and winning their trust. Second part of it is you can take this information and then share it with your team. So it's not just you who's learning from the conversation, it's the next recruiter, and you're creating a bit of like memory within the organization so that can be passed down and constantly upgraded to the point where, let's say 2 years down the line, you have 200 rows here of conversations and points that your team can pull out. Makes it much easier to train a new person. What's more, if you're seeking something more from your management, like if you're seeking more budget or if you're seeking an extra hire, if you want their help, you can present them this. It's a way that everyone understands. It's data on a sheet, and you can say, look at this, we can see pay is a pain point for 70% of CNAs in our city. What can we do around that to present our pay as being better than the competition? You can show that to a CEO and they'll see it, they'll think about it, and it's much better than saying, I'm hearing in a lot of conversations, because that's not really quantifiable. And those executive level people are going to be thinking in terms of numbers and data and financial decisions. So what I'm going to do is make a copyable link of this so that if you want, you can start using it. Curious to know, is anyone on this call doing something like this at the moment? And have you got any sort of tips or things that you've seen that sort of charting candidate feedback has helped you? Feel free to unmute yourself and share your knowledge. I'll wait 10 seconds to see if anybody does. No? Okay. So what you can do is, as I said, join the group, take the sheet, and start having better conversations with your candidates. We'd love to hear how you get on with it. So come into our Facebook group. The link is in the Zoom chat, and we can follow up in there. And if you ever need any help from us, just post in that group, and we'll be happy to help you. So that's all for this one. It was a pretty short point that I came across and I'd seen working for us. But we'll be doing another event in a couple of weeks, so look out for that. And thanks for coming to this one. So I'll see you all later.